The sound of shattering glass wasn't what I expected to hear when I opened the front door that night, but it was the sound that told me everything in my life was about to break. A wineglass lay in pieces on the kitchen tile. My wife, well, the woman I thought I knew, stood frozen beside the counter, her phone clenched in her hand like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her pupils were blown wide, her face pale, her breath caught mid-gasp. But it wasn't the mess on the floor that made her tremble. It was the man standing next to me, the man she never expected to see in our house, the man whose name she had been whispering behind my back for months. Her divorce attorney. "Evening, Caroline," he said, his voice calm, almost polite. "Surprised to see me?" I didn't speak. I didn't trust myself to speak, because I knew that if I opened my mouth, 20 different emotions would come out at once. Rage, disbelief, grief, humiliation. And I wasn't about to give her that satisfaction. Her fingers curled tighter around the phone. Why is he here? Daniel, what are you doing? I stepped inside, closing the door behind me with a deliberate softness that made the silence sharpen. I set a thick folder on the dining table. It landed with a heavy thud that made Caroline flinch. "These," I said evenly, "belong to you." She stared at the folder like it was a live explosive. She wasn't wrong, because in that folder was every message she ever deleted, every lie she ever told, every night she thought I was asleep while she slipped into someone else's arms, her secret hotel receipts, her hidden payments, her plans for a life without me, and she had no idea how I got any of it. But we're not there yet. To explain how we reached this moment, the moment when my wife of 7 years realized I knew everything, I have to drag you back to where it really began. Not with suspicion, not with a fight, not even with a lie. It began with a notification. My name is Daniel Mercer, 19 years in cybersecurity, and ironically, the last person you'd expect to be blindsided by betrayal. I wasn't the jealous type. I wasn't paranoid. I believed trust was the foundation of marriage. Turns out trust is only as strong as the person holding it. Caroline, 31, bright, charming, a marketing executive who could sell sand in a desert, told me she was going to a team-building dinner. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious, until my phone buzzed with a text from someone who had no reason to message me at all. It was from Evan, an old college friend who happened to work at her firm. Team-building dinner? What dinner? Half the office left at 5, and Caroline called in sick today. I read it twice, 3 times. I didn't answer. I didn't react. I simply looked out the window and watched my wife, my perfectly collected, perfectly dressed wife, adjust her lipstick in the side mirror of her car before driving away. Not an Uber, not with colleagues, not to a team-building anything. Something inside me, a faint, electric flicker of instinct, switched on, and the professional in me took over. I opened my laptop. Even then, even with that strange tightening in my chest, I told myself I was wrong, that this was nothing, that I was being ridiculous. But then I opened the cloud backup, and that was the moment the world began to tilt. Because Caroline had forgotten one thing: who set up her phone, who configured her cloud, who built the security protocols she never bothered to learn. Her messages were waiting for me like snakes coiled in the dark. And once I started reading, couldn't stop. It wasn't even explicit. Just a single line sent to a number I didn't recognize. Can't stop thinking about last night. I stared at it for a full minute, my heart beating somewhere behind my teeth. Then came another. Same time tomorrow? Then a photo. Not of her face, not of her body, just her necklace, the one I gave her, lying on a hotel pillow. A hotel I didn't recognize. A necklace I bought. Pillow that wasn't ours. And just like that, everything inside me shifted. Slowly, quietly, irreversibly. I didn't rage. I didn't cry. I didn't fall apart. Instead, something cold and razor-sharp cut its way through the shock. The thought, plan. Because if Caroline wanted to play games, she had no idea who she was playing against. I didn't sleep that night, not because the betrayal kept me awake, but because clarity did. A strange stillness settled over me, the kind that comes right before a storm breaks, the kind that doesn't warn you, but prepares you. By 2 a.m. I'd already built a full map of Caroline's digital footprint. Call logs, bank statements, deleted text threads, hotel bookings, her second email, yes, the secret one she created 5 months earlier. When you work in cybersecurity long enough, you learn that people hide things the same way they make mistakes. Predictably. But nothing prepared me for the name that showed up again and again. Elias Ward. I knew him, not personally, but by reputation. A senior VP at a rival firm. A man known for charisma that bordered on weaponized. A man who wore tailored suits and hollow promises with equal ease. A man who flirted with every woman in every boardroom he walked into. A man Caroline once mentioned only once, briefly, in passing. A harmless anecdote at the dinner table. Or so I thought. Her messages with him were extensive. You make me feel alive again. I hate leaving your arms. I wish he wasn't home tonight. And his replies, God, his replies made my hands shake. We'll be together soon. I talked to the attorney. She'll be ready. Don't worry about the financials. I'll help you get what you deserve. Her divorce attorney. The one standing beside me later. The one she thought was hers alone. But that discovery came later. For now, all I knew was this. She wasn't just cheating. She was planning a strategic exit. One that involved lawyers, financial maneuvering, and, apparently, a future with Elias Ward. The man who thought he was outsmarting me. I closed my laptop, exhaling slowly. Max, my old shepherd mix, lifted his head from the rug and watched me with human-like concern. Good boy, I whispered, scratching behind his ears. We've got work to do. Because if truth was a door, I now had the keys. All of them. At 6:13 a.m. Caroline slipped back into the house. I was waiting for her at the kitchen table, coffee steaming in my hands. She froze just for a second, barely a stutter in her step. If I hadn't spent the last 8 hours dissecting her lies, I might have missed it. You're up early, she said lightly, trying to step past me toward the fridge. You're home late. She didn't turn around, didn't answer, just opened the fridge, stared inside as if trying to remember why she'd come there in the first place. Long night? I asked. She pulled out a carton of milk with a shaky laugh. Team building, you know how it gets. Who was the team? I tilted my head. A small, surgical question. She hesitated. Too long. Oh, the usual. Madison. Claire. Funny, I said calmly. Evan told me Madison left early with the flu, and Claire was flying to Seattle last night. Her shoulders stiffened. Just enough. That's weird, she murmured, forcing a smile. Maybe I misremembered. Clean, polished, and practiced. She buttered toast she didn't eat, drank coffee she didn't taste, kissed me on the cheek with lips that still smelled faintly of hotel soap. And then she left. No guilt, no fear, just detachment. The kind of detachment that only appears once you've emotionally checked out of a marriage. By noon, I made my decision. No confrontation. Not yet. People make mistakes when they panic. Mistakes that can be documented. So instead, I gathered evidence. Not like a husband, like a strategist. 3 days later, I sat in my car outside her office building when my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was low, hesitant. Daniel Mercer? This is going to sound strange. My name is Amelia Ward. Ward. My grip tightened around the phone. I'm Elias's wife. The world seemed to tilt again. I think your wife is having an affair with my husband, she continued, voice trembling. And I think they're planning something bigger than just an affair. There it was. Confirmation from the last person who should know. I need to meet, she said. Tonight, please. You're not the only one being betrayed. Her voice cracked on the last word. I closed my eyes for a moment, processing. A cheating spouse was one thing. A cheating spouse who was conspiring with a corporate shark to orchestrate a divorce ambush? That was war. I opened my eyes. Send me the address. because now the game had changed, and I was done being outmaneuvered. That meeting with Amelia would uncover things neither of us was prepared for. That Elias wasn't just having an affair. He was being investigated, closely, silently, by people who were about to lose millions because of him. That Caroline had unknowingly tied herself to a sinking ship. That the plan they built together, the secret messages, the hidden bank transfers, the late-night hotel meetings, was already collapsing. And I wasn't just going to watch. I was going to accelerate the collapse. Carefully, legally, methodically. And when the dust settled, Caroline would be standing exactly where she deserved to stand, alone. Her message came with an address, a quiet residential street on the north side of the city, far from corporate towers and hotel lobbies where lies were usually traded. I arrived just before sunset. The sky was a slow-burning orange, and the wind pushed brittle leaves across the pavement. It felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Amelia opened the door before I could knock. She looked nothing like the powerful executive spouse I had imagined. She looked exhausted, not physically, emotionally, as if she'd been holding back a tidal wave for months and finally realized she was drowning. "You're Daniel," she said quietly. "Please, come in." Her house smelled faintly of lavender and something warm in the oven, but the air carried a tension so sharp it felt almost metallic. She gestured toward the living room where a folder waited on the coffee table. "I thought maybe you'd want to see this." Inside the folder were printed emails, screenshots, hotel invoices, far more detailed than anything I had collected. She had done her own digging, and she had found everything. But there was something different about her evidence. Something that made my pulse tighten. It wasn't Caroline's messages. It was Elias's. He wasn't just reckless, he was arrogant. He talked about Caroline like she was a prize he'd earned, a trophy he could move into place once the game was finished. He talked about financial leverage, about shifting assets, about my supposed compliance. He had no idea who he was talking about. "You see why I reached out," Amelia said, sitting opposite me. Her hands were shaking slightly, though her voice remained steady. "He's planning to leave, and your wife is part of it." I kept flipping through the pages. A hotel receipt with both their initials. A private booking for a suite on a night when Caroline told me she had food poisoning. A calendar reminder labeled only with a single letter. C. But then I reached something that made me go completely still. A printed email thread between Elias and a name I instantly recognized. Caroline's divorce attorney. The same attorney standing in my kitchen weeks later. He wrote to Elias, "Your timeline is tight. She needs to initiate within the next 3 weeks, before the audit committee finalizes their findings. After that, her leverage evaporates." Audit committee? I looked up at Amelia. What audit? Her expression pulled tight, like she wished she could take the words back, but it was too late to pretend. "You don't know," she whispered. "Daniel, Elias is under internal investigation. Financial manipulation. Several large clients have raised concerns. His firm is trying to keep it quiet until they decide what to do." Everything inside me clicked into place. The sudden urgency in the messages. The attorney's warnings. Caroline's push to create financial distance. She wasn't getting a fresh start with a successful executive. She was tying herself to a sinking man who was trying to secure a soft landing before everything collapsed on him. I sat back, letting the truth settle. Caroline wasn't just betraying me. She was choosing the losing side of a war she didn't understand. "Why show me this?" I finally asked. Amelia looked at me with something like shame and something like courage. "Because I spent a year convincing myself I must have imagined the signs. The late nights, the hidden accounts, the way he stopped looking at me when I walked into a room. I let him rewrite the truth in front of me, and I agreed to the edits." She took a slow breath. "I won't let him take anything else from me, and I won't let your wife help him do it." Her voice hardened, not angry, but resolute. "They think we'll stay quiet. They think we'll be too humiliated to act. They think we're the predictable ones." That struck a chord deep inside me, because that was exactly what Caroline believed, and exactly what Elias assumed. Predictable, quiet, weak. But betrayal has a strange side effect. It sharpens you. I closed the folder, stood up, and extended my hand. Then let's make sure they get exactly what they deserve. Amelia shook my hand. Her grip was steady now. As I walked back to my car, the streetlights buzzed to life, throwing long shadows across the pavement. For the first time since discovering Caroline's messages, I felt something close to clarity. Not peace. Not yet. But purpose. Their plan was already collapsing, they just didn't know it. And I was done waiting for another crack to appear. If they wanted a quiet husband in the background, they chose the wrong man. The next morning began with a silence that felt too controlled, too deliberate. Caroline moved around the kitchen like an actress hitting her marks, avoiding my eyes, pretending nothing in our world was cracking under her feet. She spoke about banal things: traffic, dry cleaning, an upcoming meeting, as if rehearsing the lines of a script she hoped I was still buying. But the moment her phone buzzed and she saw the name on the screen, her mask slipped. It was the smallest reaction. A quick inhale, a flicker of hesitation, a faint flush rising on her neck. But after everything I'd uncovered, it felt deafening. "I'll be late tonight," she said. "Strategy review session at the office." "Of course," I replied evenly. "Do what you need to do." If she heard the layered meaning behind those words, she didn't show it. After she left, I opened my laptop. I didn't need more evidence. I had enough to crush her in court. What I needed now was timing, precision, the right strikes in the right order. Nothing messy, nothing impulsive. Step 1. Confirm the audit. A quick scan through public financial filings, employee chatter on internal forums, and a few backdoor access points only someone in my field would know how to navigate was enough to show the cracks. Elias's firm was wobbling. Something big was brewing behind their polished corporate facade. Step 2. Make discreet contact. I sent a message, anonymous, untraceable, to the firm's ethics hotline. Not accusations, not claims. Just a breadcrumb. A reference to an irregularity I'd noticed in a client expense report linked to Elias Ward. Enough to prompt them to dig deeper without suspecting a thing. Step 3. Warn the only person who might be collateral. Hours later, Amelia called me. I could hear the tension in her breathing before she spoke. "They pulled Elias into a closed-door meeting," she said. "He didn't come home last night." "He won't," I answered. "Not for a while." I didn't elaborate. She didn't ask. It was remarkable how betrayal simplifies communication. No needless explanations, no illusions, just truth. That evening, Caroline sent a text claiming the strategy session was running late. I didn't reply. Instead, I sat on the living room couch and listened to the quiet hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the wall clock, the familiar creak of the old wood floorboards whenever Max wandered past. Everything in the house felt unchanged, yet entirely different. When Caroline finally came home at midnight, her perfume hit me first. Too elegant, too layered, too intimate to be office wear. Her hair was slightly mussed, her blouse not quite as crisp as in the morning. She moved quietly, thinking I was asleep. What she didn't know was that I watched her from the dark hallway as she slipped into the bedroom, paused, then glanced at her reflection in the mirror, studying herself with a mix of guilt and anticipation. She had no idea the ground beneath her was eroding. No idea the man she was risking everything for would soon be unable to save himself. No idea that her script, the one she'd written behind my back, was being rewritten without her. And when she finally drifted off to sleep, unaware of the storm gathering, I stood in the doorway and felt the faintest hint of something I hadn't expected. Not anger, not triumph, relief, because the end was no longer coming. It was already in motion. 2 days later, everything accelerated at once. At noon, Amelia called again. This time her voice wasn't trembling. It was taut, clipped, urgent. "They suspended Elias," she said. "Effective immediately. Security escorted him out." This wasn't a surprise, but the speed of it was. "What triggered it?" I asked. "A reviewer found inconsistencies in his project budgets. They think he used client funds for personal use." There's also talk of misconduct. Multiple employees have come forward. Of course they had. People like Elias collect enemies the way others collect business cards. What about Caroline? I asked. A pause. She doesn't know yet, but she will soon. That was enough. I thanked her, ended the call, and sat for a moment in the stillness of the house. Felt like the calm before impact. That evening, Caroline came home early, rare in recent months. Her expression was tight, her smile overcompensating, her voice too bright. "Long day," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "Can we order dinner? I'm exhausted." I watched her move through the kitchen with careful, calculated gestures. There was tension under her skin, a barely contained unease. Something had reached her. Some whisper, some rumor, some tremor in the corporate air. "What happened?" I asked. She blinked, startled. "What do you mean?" "You're tense. Just work. Nothing serious." Instinctive. Automatic. She wasn't good at lying anymore. Or maybe I had simply stopped pretending not to notice. After dinner, she disappeared into the bedroom to take a call. I stood outside the door, silent, listening. Not because I needed more evidence, but because her voice said more than her words ever could. "Elias, slow down," she whispered. "What do you mean they suspended you?" "No, listen to me. Just tell me what's happening. They can't do this without proof." "Elias, are you there?" Silence. A broken connection. A broken plan. When she stepped out, she looked startled to see me. "Everything okay?" I asked. She forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, just work chaos." "Need help?" I offered with quiet neutrality. Her breath hitched almost imperceptibly. That was the moment she realized something was shifting. That the ground wasn't as stable as she thought. That the script she had memorized no longer fit the unfolding scene. "No," she said too quickly. "I'm fine. Of course." When she went to shower, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her nightstand. The second phone was tucked inside, hidden under a stack of magazines. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. It would incriminate her soon enough. And when she crawled into bed later, exhausted, restless, trying to pretend she wasn't terrified, I lay beside her listening to the air deepen with unspoken truth. She didn't know it yet, but the life she'd been building behind my back had just been set on fire from within. Not by me, not by revenge, but by the man she gambled everything on. A man who was now collapsing under his own weight. A man who would soon drag her down with him. I turned off the bedside lamp, the room sinking into darkness. The end wasn't coming anymore. It was already here.